American. Oh, I'd love to get back. I'm trying to find this is only going. They have we just got some film. One of my cousins that you have.
Great. Lovely talking to you, and of course, we were about that high. About that high. It's extraordinary. Anyhow, thank you for this lovely party on behalf of us all. And congratulations, Michael, on a happy 80th, and may you have a few more.
Yep. Congratulations very much. Arnold and Alan for getting things organised. And
well, you do it,
my son Andrew.
You can do another 10 minutes.
No, I would like to say. No, I would like to say. I call him John because I think he's a John and not a Billy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Call me what you like.
I'm not sure whether I'm going to be testing the stamina of the audience here beyond all endurance. If Jimmy had a hard act to follow after 2 Irishmen, I've got to follow 2 Irishmen and a script writer for Dad's Army, which leaves me with very little to play with. I think it was probably about, 3 weeks ago, I called Marilyn up to ask her kind permission to gate crash Uncle Michael's celebration and impose something of my own. I use the word celebration guardedly in my own case. Celebration to me conjures up something which people enjoy and are thankful for and grateful for. And there's another word, commemoration, which conjures up all sorts of other things, obligation, that maybe it's something you ought to do, but you don't really feel you're going to enjoy it. And I wasn't sure, quite honestly, as I travelled towards my 50th, whether it was a commemoration or a celebration, but you can make your own choice on that one. Then I had to justify my existence here by making a speech, Marilyn said, and I contemplated that certainly for a long time, perhaps not hard enough, and still struggling as to what I might say. 50 years is an extremely long time in my life.
It's a shock, you're just a kid.
Yes. The way I looked upon it, I think the way I looked upon it is it's a metric 80, I think, for those who can still do those calculations. So I'm closer than Michael thinks. But how does one look over 50 years? What do you talk about? What do you leave in? What do you leave out? And the more I thought about it, the easier it began to appear. I thought I could probably dispense with the first 10 years, but I couldn't remember very much of that anyway. And then that brought me up to, I suppose, the 1960s, and the general. I can remember where I was when JFK died, which is a sort of seminal event, I think, in my generation, and pinpoints this. And then you sort of drag yourself forward, and it's Winston Churchill's funeral and memories of shivering on the embankment in the middle of the night, attending his lying in state. And then life went on a little bit further, and I think probably the Beatles arrived around that time, of course. Vietnam, student revolutions. That was the 60s that I remember. And then I think we got involved in the work scene, and life went on and became extremely hectic. And it became harder and harder to remember very much about anything, and to remember last year, last week, an hour ago sometimes is a struggle. So casting my mind back over 50 years was indeed a challenge, but hearing Uncle Michael talk about his childhood in Barnes makes me think about my schooling, I suppose, which is one thing we have in common. And we went to the same school, albeit 30 years apart. And I suppose thinking about it, compared with today, my thoughts are that probably there was a lot more in common between my schooling and his schooling, and indeed the schooling of my my father indeed, and probably my own children 30 years after that. The pace of change in the world has been stupendous, I think, since then. When I went to St Paul's, we went to school in the same building. I had probably a similar route to school, travelling on the bus and the underground. Many of the teachers, I think, we probably shared, maybe not those who were shell-shocked in World War I, but many of the others were still there. And there was even physical proof that we'd attended the same school. You know, some people had some members of the family had their names, I think, on the wall. Some of the more illustrious members, and there are some less illustrious members who had their names scrawled in other places of the school. And you know, one of the things we did probably was share the same desk at times. And I can remember in my very early days lifting the lid of one of these old Victorian desks, and inscribed under this lid was M.E. Arnold loves Jane. That's your story. One of my errors in life was when the old school got knocked down, not making a bid for that desk. So he was nothing if not precocious, Michael.
Well said.
Yes. But struggling with trying to remember what happened over 50 years, then the other aspect of looking back over one's life is, of course, a debt of gratitude and thanks to all those who've tolerated you for so long. And first of all, I should, of course, extend those thanks to my parents, who are happily with us both today. On my left, Pam hiding in the back row, probably both a little chilled. But thank you for bringing me into the world, and once having done that, thanks for not sending me back to my maker as soon as possible. Thanks are also to my two brothers who are with us still. Thank you for forgetting all those years of bullying. But I've no doubt it was... Yeah.
I live with it.
I can't remember them.
I'm sure it was character formation is what it's all about.
I'm still waiting for the right moment.
Yes. My children, at least two of them, are here today, and I suppose I should say thank you to them too for giving me a tremendous amount of interest and the opportunity to look forward to the next 50 years, because that's certainly one of the things that I'll be looking forward to in that. And I say that, the next 50 years, that's a thought, isn't it? But I'm not sure whether that's something I definitely look forward to, but it's perhaps with the miracles of modern medical science, it's something that people of my generation have to even think about contemplating, as there are more and more managing to achieve that. And the evidence on my left suggests that you know, there are some with us who are well on the way to achieving that next major milestone. So maybe we'll all be gathered together here for that celebration before too long. So, having thought backwards, as I say... 1 minute. Well, I could certainly do with a drink anyway, nobody else can. So, I've been struggling to look backwards, and to look forwards is even more. More than half my half-century, I have been extraordinarily happily married, and tolerance, I'm sure, has played a large part of that, and probably certainly on one of our sides. One of the happiest days of my life would be that event on October the 28th, something like 26 years ago. And the nice thing about today is that there are quite a number of people present, some of whom I've hardly seen since that day, have joined us, and that's the nice thing about family gatherings, that we do all come together on these occasions. So thank you all for that, and I must not, of course, forget to thank Marilyn, wherever she is now, and of course Alan, for making this all possible and allowing me to join. But thanks enough. I'm looking forward with some trepidation, as I say, to the next 50 years. A lot of my friends have been going through this process over the last few months, and a few have still got to do it. And I think when I say trepidation, it all came home to me a couple of months ago when a good friend of mine was due to join me for a round of golf. and he called me up early in the morning and said, "I'm sorry, John, I can't join you. I've wrecked my back." And I was expecting to hear of a dramatic tale of some sporting injury that he'd incurred, and I inquired further as to what had happened. And he said, "John, well, I'm afraid I bent down and pulled my socks on too hard this morning." So, if that's what I got to look forward to, I'm a little bit wary. But perhaps I could leave the last word with the immortal bard on the lines of, I think it was, "There's many a man that hath more hair than wit." And I think that says it all for the Arnold. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's horrendous. Sorry about that.
Is that your
Click on the dump. Why isn't it going on?
It's long. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning.
Can you tell us where we are this morning?
We are in Chimaja, living in our wee patch where all the rich expats come to stay. This is Poo Tubes. Big heavy shore up in Canterville, but it's a good indicator of how big everything else is. We're here early in the morning. We're supposed to be going off that direction to find a big wave spot, but the swell's doubled the size overnight, so we're not going to do that. We're going to go that way instead, away up into the distance, that direction. Try and find a notoriously fickle but brilliant left-hander called Logie, which only works 3 times a year, so we're going to try that. See what happens.
That's a man, the big charger.
We're on our way to Logie now. It's a wee bit different from travelling around in Scotland. The sea's over there somewhere.
Without your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling on. Don't think twice, it's alright. It's alright. Because I can't do it anymore. I mean, I have places to meet. Honestly, I have places to meet.
Doing a bit of something on this.
Seriously. Yes, my friend is blowing. How many roads can a man walk down before you call him man? How many seas can a water dog sail before she can sleep in the sand? The answer, my friend, is blowing no wind. The answer is blowing no wind. Warming up.
Right.
See it doing anything?
Neil, don't walk the video. All the fishing boats are waves. There you go, that's a better one. That for Oh yeah.
I think the verdict is we should go out. Last time we were here it was a lot better, but we'll go out again.
Back is right done. Big fruit bat. This is our first sighting of some of the tombs in the limestone rocks. These are somebody's family. And there are the ancestors. Rather macabre, you might say. Go into the caves.
Wait, I'll take another one.
Nice welcome going into a cave. Nice sight of the river.
I'll go down to the river.
Sarah. Hanging on. God. David! You little piglets. Proud owner with his buffalo. And this is the funeral at last. The site of total carnage. Slaughtered buffaloes and slaughtered pigs. People still waiting their fate. This is actually another funeral ceremony we found up in the mountains way behind Bay on the next day. Butchering an oxen, obviously. And that's the pig. Miller's not very impressed. There's an eagle out there. There he goes. Something of a panorama here. Storm in the distance. Looking nice. The bellow's working. He's trying to fix the shoe. A new road surface on here. The finished product. Sarah negotiating the new road. Pretty impressive clumps of bamboo around here. A couple of impressive village houses. All the buffalo horns. It's hard to get a visual impression of the camera, what we're looking at here, but these are graves, baby graves so called for children, hollowed out of a limestone cliff, which you can see is pretty darn vertical. Going up in the other direction, how these holes are hollowed out, I've no idea. And then others, maybe it's the babies themselves, are put up in the trees. You can see these canopies in the trees. I'm going to zero in and get a better idea. Maybe on the other hand, these are the graves and trees. You can see the hollowed out, not a very big tree. Hole through the rock there. And knows what's up there. Some catching on the rock here. Oh, they're breaking across. 30 feet across. David. Zoom in on David. Say it, David. Zooming in on you. Oh no. Another shot. Cave here, right, going into the rock. Splendid use of limestone escarpment in the far distance there. Zoom in for a second. Another prize buffalo. Those are reputed to be worth about 20 million rupiah. This is the so-called traditional village of Pawala. It certainly has got some impressive houses, but it's slightly less impressive and rather over-enthusiastic vendors of all sorts of wares. On this occasion, jawbones seem to be the pride and joy. I'm waiting for the next female. Panorama time again. This time taken for a shot on the road going up to the whitewater rafting where we're heading this morning. Our vehicle for today, and yet another view. They're really quite high up now. Possible to take the video camera on the rafting trip, but this who was there to greet us at the end. Now just back up. Over here, very tranquil compared to what it was high up. We've now just arrived at Tampangallo. We got here on our bicycles, not without some physical endurance involved. And some very impressive cave burial sites here, and we're just about to go into one. Coffins suspended from the roof there, and some so-called tautau there. Skulls everywhere. Now up amongst the coffins. See some of the so-called tautau effigies. I'd like to get a pick of these up, there are a lot more over here. Whether we can see it when those two gentlemen are wearing bright red dresses. Friday and it's market day in Rantapau. I've come to see what's going on. That's mainly buffalo and pigs, I think. There's the scene. Fine specimen.
Dapat setengah. 3 adalah mantega. 3.800.000. Dengan kita ya, 4 juta. Iya.
The negotiations are underway there. This one must be the star of the market today.
Sudah berapa tahun? Umurnya?
5.
These piggies went home. Those sort of pigs that were travelling in style, this is how they normally come. Not the most dignified way to travel. One going home, oh dear. A bit more civilised here. Spices and vegetables. Transport arranged for the next journey. Horror. Here we have some particularly impressive megaliths, as well as the normal grave sites. These huge stones that must have been dug here from who knows where. Cave grave there. Just put in there in 1993. No, there's a new grave, so I think they've just been made ready, Sarah. There you can see the local palm that's used for extracting arak, the local wine. You can see a sort of apparatus of bamboo channels that are used for taking the sap out. An ancient stone grave here, hiding behind a clump of bamboo. Yet more. Inside there's presumably one individual hammering away at this extraordinarily hard rock, which I think is probably sort of basalt or granite. This is how long it takes to hew out one of these graves. The workers here sitting perched on top of one of the rock graves. We're now in Perinding. It's one of the largest and creepiest burial sites we've seen so far. Masses of coffins stacked up with skeletons and skulls everywhere, and a huge cave entrance. Splendid welcome.